Limits up subdivision up by us tonight. Is that on the agenda? Really? Did they just have a planning meeting last week?
It's 2 weeks old. Yeah.
Well, love you guys.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
So I'll check real later.
Okay. We ready? Okay, welcome to our city council meeting tonight. I've asked Councilman Staley if he'll open with a word of prayer, and Councilman Nyson if he will offer a pledge of allegiance.
Our Father, we are grateful for the freedom and democracy we have, for good people that work hard to make this a nice place. Grateful for those who sacrificed for our freedom. Are mindful of them. Father, we ask that would be with us this night, that would grant us wisdom and good judgment in our thinking and discussion and decision making. Benefit the citizens of our city. Hope that lesson upon Washington City, upon those who work and live here, and because the hand of providence will be upon us all. Pray in the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Please stand and repeat.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll move on to item 1, approval of the agenda.
A motion that we approve the agenda as outlined.
Okay, I have a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second.
Nice night.
Staley, aye.
Turek, aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. I may need to excuse Councilman Segmiller. Anybody hear from him? Okay. Maybe we'll look forward to seeing him later. Item 2, announcements. Any announcements to bring forth?
I was going to say I've heard a lot of positive feedback from the events of Monday for Memorial Day. Veterans said they really
Good.
enjoyed coming to Washington City. They've attended St. George, but they really like this one.
That's good to hear. There is a groundswell going on, Councilman, that we have just one on Veterans Day, one celebration, rather than one in St. George and Washington, and they prefer it to be here. So we've been talking about that as mayors.
Well, this is where Dixie began, so.
Thank you very much. Any other announcements? Okay, item 3, declaration of abstentions and conflicts. Any to declare at this time? Item 4, approve on our consent agenda to approve the minutes of the City Council meeting 5/13/2014 and 5/14/2014. Anything to discuss on those minutes?
If not, Mayor, I'll move that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of our meeting on May 13th, 2014 and May 14th, 2014.
I have a motion.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second.
Turek, aye.
Staley, aye.
Truman, aye.
Nice night.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Those are approved. Item 5, update report, a yearly update report from the Southern Utah Shooting Sports Park. Terry here? Did he say he was going to be here? Well, just for your information, some of you may or may not know, but when the shooting park was established and got going, they asked for help from each one of the cities, which we agreed to do, and so every year they give us an update of any of the improvements that they've done or needs that they may have. Most of our contributions are in kind, as I recall, use of a backhoe or help grade a road, et cetera, et cetera. But they've also indicated any financial help that we could offer, they'd be more than willing to take it. But I don't know if you've been out there. They've really upgraded it. They hold regional and national shooting events, and it's been a very nice thing for our county. So Terry usually comes and gives us an update on some of their needs and desires, but maybe we'll catch you next time. Item 6, plat amendment, consideration to approve a plat amendment for the villas at Sienna Hills, located at approximately 325 North Redstone Road. Applicant Henry Walker Homes.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. As stated, the applicant is wishing to make an amendment to the final plat for the villas at Sienna Hills. This will be the second amendment at this particular development. The particular area, of course, is within the Sienna Hills PCD. You're probably familiar with this. There's the existing 6 units that are on the ground there, and that's this unit, this one, this one, this one, these 2, and the pool house club area is also been built as well. Not too long ago, a little over a year, the original developer came before the city council and wanted to go from all triplexes, condos, and then they proposed a side-by-side townhome unit. One was a 2-story, the other was a single-story side-by-side, dropped the units down to a total of 54 for the entire project. That was passed by the Planning Commission and City Council. They never did come forward and begin any development. In fact, I don't think they showed back up into the city after they got that approval. I'm not sure what happened. I guess the finances just did not come together. Ended up back in the Bank of American Forks hands. Then it was looked at to being bought by, I think they're called Rimrock up in northern Utah. And they actually came before you not too long ago with a proposal of the Second Amendment at that time to go back to triplex condominiums, but they didn't call them condos, if you remember. We had the shared garage space. That was approved by the Planning Commission City Council, but it never did get recorded. And since then, they've backed out of that project. Henry Walker and somehow the Bank of American Fork ended up getting together, proposing to buy the remainder of this project. Now Henry Walker is coming in proposing another Second Amendment. So I know it sounds a little bit confusing, but that's the history behind that. Henry Walker's proposal that you see before you tonight is proposing back up to 72 full units, but they will be side-by-side townhomes, much of like the project you see up at the Coral Ridge. They purchased that project, built it out, and these homes will be somewhat similar to that. So they'll come in. This is the layout, so they are going back up to 72 complete units. Again, there's already, as we know, 18 units in the project, so they'll be building basically 54 more townhome units in the villas. So with that said, the Planning Commission reviewed the proposal at their May 7th meeting, and with some discussion, their biggest concerns were these 2 particular areas: the driveway here going into that triplex, and this driveway going into this 4-plex or 4 units side by side. They just wanted to make sure that that was at least 20 feet wide, which I think I scaled it out, and I'm pretty sure that it is 20 feet wide. But that was their only recommendation of concern, was just those 2 long driveways, and that there would be no parking on it to inhibit anybody coming and going out of it. So they'll have to post that. Other than that, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the villas at Sienna Hills Second Amendment to the City Council based on that plat that you see before you. And I added, as part of that, of course this is a final plat, the first 5 conditions are the standard ones. I added number 6 in this case. The proposed townhome units will match the existing condominiums in exterior finish materials and color schemes. In other words, we want them to look as close to what's there already without having this difference of 6 units, one look, and then the others, the other 54, some different color schemes. So developers agreed to do that to match as close they can. It's been several years. It may be hard to find those exact tiles on the roof and those exact colors, but they'll do the best they can to match what's already there. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that the council might have on this proposed plat amendment.
So single car garage,
They're going to be an oversized single car garage, what I understand, yes.
and it looked like there was some discussion at the Planning Commission about the setback and the width of the driveway, irrespective of the corner buildings.
They just want to make sure they were 20 feet deep so you could still have a car, that they won't have to park anywhere else, but they could park right in front of the garage door. And
You felt comfortable with that
Yeah.
that was adequate?
yeah, and as you can see, they've got quite a few extra visitor parking. In fact, most of it's built. You can drive through and see this configurations out there. These 4 are in. Now, what they did do, if you drive out, the one thing that is missing, there was a bubble that is here and here that they will be removing and straighten those out. It does look like this on both streets, so they'll basically be eliminating that bubble and that bubble that would have been here and here. And then there's extra visitor parking here and then at the clubhouse and pool area as well.
Did they give any indication as to when they would build that? Or is it there? I haven't been out
The
to
clubhouse is in.
Clubhouse
The
is in.
pool's built. Had a swim no, I'm just kidding. I didn't try it. It's a nice pool. Been there, and it's a nice clubhouse and pool area. I'm quite pleased with how that turned out. So.
And the residents are okay with back to the original number of units, or they
I
just
think
want
the
to have it
residents are
built?
just hoping something gets built. Is what the 3 that stood up in the planning commission were just, as long as they can make them look as close to ours in color and scope, let's please get it built out. I think is what they're finding to at this point, just to get the project finished and get rid of just the flat weed collector.
Yeah, it's nice when you see comments like one of the residents says he's pleased to have this project built out.
Yeah, I was pleased with that gentleman. He waited a while and stood up, and that's all his comment was. I just want to finally see it get completed.
If there's no further discussion, I'll make a motion. We approve a plat amendment for the villas at Sienna Hills located at approximately 325 North Redstone Road. Applicant Henry Walker Homes.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
Nice and I.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Turek, aye.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. That's approved. Item 7, public hearings and related ordinances/resolution. The public hearing on item A for consideration to adoption of the 2014-2015 fiscal year budget. City Manager Roger Carter.
Thank you, Mayor. Of course, this is the public hearing night, which will take any public comment. This budget process, and just by way of introducing the budget, this is a budget process that began with the council in November of last year, and has gotten to the point where the council adopted a tentative budget last council meeting, and then with any changes they might have, they'll adopt a final budget in the month of June. But anyway, we're anticipating, again, in the 2015 fiscal year, strong revenues coming in. We're anticipating 4% growth, all that primarily in the sales tax area. We're not anticipating any property tax increase at all again this year. From a building standpoint, we brought our number of permits down a little bit, just in anticipation of where we're at with subdivisions and saturation and those type of things. We have a number of capital projects listed, quite a number of capital projects listed, and the council will be addressing some of those capital projects within the next couple of council meetings. This budget reflects a maximum of a 2% pay adjustment for employees, as well as an increase of 3 full-time positions and 4 part-time positions. Expenditures are about 5% up from the previous years, but all departments have met the budgeting requirements. We do anticipate an excess revenue over funds, which again the council will be addressing for the much-needed capital projects that we have out there, and the council will be setting those priorities here in the next council meeting or two. Anyway, all this amount results in a 2014-15 general fund budget of $12,902,558, combined special revenue and debt service and internal service funds of $3,876,507, enterprise fund totals of $27,489,343, capital project fund totals of $6,393,438, and a total Washington City budget for 2014-15 of $50,661,846. We summarized a lot of months right there.
Don't you wish it was that easy to put together that quick? Huh?
Any comments, questions from the
How
council?
much of a raise was that from the previous year,
I'm sorry, revenue or expenditure?
the budget?
Well, the revenue was up about 5%, or expenditure was up, and this is general fund, expenditure was up about 5%, revenue is up about 4%. And of course, we've had fund balance that we've had to use as well. That's why that offset a little bit, we have to use.
This is a public hearing. Any of you that would like to involve yourself in our budget or have a question or comment, you're welcome to come on up and talk about it.
And the other thing I'll mention, Mayor, is I know sometimes our citizens think maybe this is a one shot, and certainly from a public hearing, we don't have a lot of these, but we do have budget openings throughout the year that we encourage them to be involved in. Plus, if they ever have a question, and we do post the budgets online, that we encourage them to talk to members of the council or staff as well.
And again, just for the public, we spent quite a bit of time on the budget, and we've really tried to focus on making certain any excess revenue can be allocated to infrastructure, to our roads, and try to improve those. And so we're going to keep that focus going forward.
Okay.
There's nobody, Mayor. I'll move that we close the public hearing.
There's a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second.
Nice and I.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Turek, aye.
All right. That is closed. Item B, public hearing to consider approve a zone change application Z-1404, requesting to change the present zone from open space and R1-6 single-family square foot lots to PCD, Planned Community Development Zone, to be known as Brillo del Sol. Property is located from Buena Vista Boulevard north to approximately 1250 north, from Main Street west to approximately the Mill Creek Wash, 600 west, Henry Walker Homes.
I'm not doing it. It's a brand new TV. It's okay for you because I can't turn it the other way and get the whole thing on, so I'll have to. All right. Thank you again, Mayor. The applicant is requesting approval of the zone change of approximately 193 acres. Of course, we know this location is at the corner of Buena Vista Boulevard and Main Street, that northwest corner. The area heading quite a ways up to even to the golf course area where you go across the bridge, etc. It's off in this particular area is where the golf course out there is. So it's quite a distance of travel there. The request to change from the current open space, and a small part of it is actually zoned single family residential, 6,000 square foot minimum, so the R16. The applicant is wishing to have it rezoned to the planned community development zoning designation. The general plan land use designation for this particular area is low density residential, high density residential, civic, and neighborhood commercial. The surrounding general plan land use designations are low-density residential, medium-density residential, and medium-high density residential to the north and west, community commercial, high-density residential, and medium-density residential to the east, and community commercial and medium-high density residential to the south. That's a mouthful. The surrounding zoning designations are open space to the north and west, PCD, or PUD, sorry, that should be PUD, and service commercial, which is C2 to the south, service commercial again, the C2, and multifamily, which is R3, and single family residential 6,000 square foot to the east. And I think that's the La Veneta project and part of the Warm Springs area on the east side. The project name being proposed for this development would be called Brillo del Sol, so no one pronounces it Brillo del Sol. Has that Spanish flair. The project is being proposed as an adult community development that will consist of single-family residential homes, which is mostly that yellowish area that you see most of there on the map. There will also be, which will comprise of the basically 470 units with another 164 units on the single-family area, so a total of 718 single-family. And there will also be some multifamily in there, that kind of pink, not pink, but it's kind of a purple color that's showing up on your screen, even though it's more of a rose color in the book. There will be some townhomes for some from different possibilities for sale on the project. And then there will also be proposing a church site here on the corner. And this is Washington Dam Road, or the proposed Washington Parkway, sorry, not Dam Road, the Washington Parkway that will come up. So this will be at the corner of Main Street and Washington Parkway. This particular area is designated for a medical clinic of some sort. And then they're also, of course, having the big community recreation center here that's just going to be behind the knoll that you see there existing. And then in the corner of the project will be an assisted living development. It falls more in commercial, and that's where it'll be people that will solely be living there, being watched and cared for on a 24-hour basis. And so they're basically taking this adult community and letting people just progress through from single family all the way, and that may end up in the adult living facility eventually. So with that said, the total number of course dwelling units will basically be 718 dwelling units plus the assisted living that will come later. We'll have approximately 200 to 210 maybe possible residents at a future date in that building area there. With the PCD, Main Street will then be extended north along with a portion of the expansion of Washington Parkway along the north boundary of the project that we kind of pointed out earlier. This whole area will be building half of the parkway, and the rest of Main Street will be built out going north on that east boundary of this particular project. Staff's reviewed the requested zone change, finds that it conforms to the general plan and the zoning ordinance and surrounding proposed development. Developer's been working with Sitla hand in hand. Also is going to make note of, there is a little piece that we're probably a little familiar with. This is actually the southern portion of the Jensen property. Now, you might wonder why that's Jensen may come into your mind. Well, the northern piece here is where the Montessori school is being done, and then there is the gorge kind of goes through and splits the properties there, and so the developer is hoping that in the future to pick up that southern, I think it's roughly 19 acres, and add to this project, which will finish that off because that's really the only access to get to that piece of land, even at the present. So that I just wanted to make note of that. Also, just to let the council know, tonight is basically just a zone change. You have been reviewing the book. We're not really passing the book tonight, the project plan. We're just passing the zone change. I would ask, just because of the wording and sensitivity of it maybe, that if a motion is made after the public hearing, that we recommend that this zone change will then go into effect with the approval of the project plan, which is this book. And the reason we're waiting on that, it does come later in the process anyway, but the development agreement is still being worked on, which will come forth at that time too. So we can then approve this book along with the development agreement, which ties all this framework that you've been reading, these 200 and some pages of the project plan together with the development agreement. So tonight we're just asking that the zone change, if it be approved, that's what we're discussing tonight. The rest of this will still have time to be talked about. In fact, the developers talked to me a little bit about, and I'll bring those to you as we iron that out, about how we want to even change a little bit of the single family area already, and it's not too big of a change. I'll discuss that at a later date with you. And with that said, the Planning Commission reviewed the proposal on their May 7th, 2014 meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of Z-14-04 for the zone change request from open space and R16 to the proposed planned community development to the City Council, and based on the findings and the conditions, of course, my condition is what I just stated, that nothing will go forward until that development agreement, which is a requirement, take place. So, which you'll be seeing at hopefully a near future date. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Drew, help me understand. I looked at the general plan land use designation on this, and the map that I looked at on the website showed the majority of this is low density residential.
Right.
Is there an underlining R16 zoning for a portion or the majority of this piece?
There's going to be, well, just to let you know, they're going to have lots that'll vary from 6,000 up to
right. I'm just
12
asking
or
about
13.
Is there a current zoning on this property or?
There's open space, which is 90% of it, and then way off in this corner over here, there's a sliver that crossed over Main Street that had some R16.
But the majority of it is
open space.
Is open space
zoning right now.
with just a land use designation of low density, correct?
Right. The general plan land use designation is low density, which again the density on it is 3 to 4.
3 to 4.5.
Yeah. Well, it's actually to 4 because we had that amendment. That hasn't probably been put in. We need to get that in there. But right now, the low density is 3.0 to 4.0. Okay. And the overall, as you can see, if I just kind of bring this up, and this has always been talked about with the developer, they're fully aware that number right there, that's the number that's the key. Whether, no matter what the lots will end up being because of topography, etc., they will not go above that 3.7. In fact, they even told me just a little while ago they'll probably come in at 3.5 for the whole single family lots, that'll be the density. So that'll be right smack in the middle of what the general plan density will be, even though, and again, we have a little bit of freedom as we do with PUDs and especially PCDs, but we really try to keep the rein on the density, not so much worry about the lot sizes for the whole project. That's why we like to do PCDs, so we're not going to get caught up in a zone change for worried about R1 this or that in a particular area. Right. They're just going to make the lots fit and never break that density ratio.
Right, we're talking custom zoning. This map it shows the entire acreage. As far as the dwelling units, it really only shows the residential unit. It doesn't really include the assisted living. But if you back out the acreage for the assisted living and some of the other amenities, I did some calculations on it, and it came out about 178.9 acres divided by the 718 units. It's still right on 4.
It's 3.98888.
Right, even if you back out some of those other things, so it seems to be in line with.
It is, and even they told me today they've been doing some preliminary planning of the area, and they're bringing in now the contours and what the earthwork's going to have to entail, and they're already realizing they're going to lose lots, and that kind of, and you know, I totally believe it. We've had that with our other PCDs. They've come in, and then when they finally went, you know, all of a sudden our densities went from this. They actually didn't grow. They shrunk. Sienna Hills is way under what we put in big sewer lines, big water lines, and we're not coming close to the densities that was approved because in Sienna Hills is fairly flat. So Mr. Willits with Henry Walker's already told me they're pre-doing some of these. Now some of the lots are going to have to be around 6,000, but so that's why we're going to go back and just do an overall single-family area. Other than the townhomes, instead of have the 2 R18, R16 areas, we're just going to I think our proposal is going to come back to you in the final to be just single-family residential, and as long as the densities are kept at 3.5 to 3.7, that's what I said we're going to hold to.
Flexibility to build out.
Because they're going to need the flexibility because of what they're finding in the topography and the build out with the earthwork. So, which I'm fine. Again, it's all down to that density in the area to meet that. So, but again, it'll be under the 4.0, which is the max even on the new low density area. So.
Question for you on the access.
Mm-hmm.
Mill Creek Springs Drive, is that a public or private road?
Public.
Okay.
Yes.
It seems to me the rest of the roads in that subdivision are
Once
private.
you come off, they're private.
But that's a collector road that they'll
And
use
we
to
always
access.
planned, and that's why we made sure that it was public, because we knew it was going to be going north.
Okay.
And that's why from the beginning when Mill Creek came through, you know, they talked about doing private, but staff said, no, we can't let you because that's going to be, and then that forces the people above you to be private, and we're not going to put that noose around anybody's neck. So we made sure that Mill Creek Springs Drive was a public. In fact, I think it's bigger than the standard 50, isn't it, Mike? It's 60. So we made it even a collector kind of a street to, you know, just planning ahead.
Are all those streets private in this subdivision?
No, I don't think. There may end up being one or two. I may ask Ben, are you going to have a private street going through the townhomes or not? It's all, that would be the only one if there is one, right? Yeah, of course the clubhouse area is there, and then possibly this one. They're going to probably see it, but I think
But
they
these
want to
are
have
all
them
public?
all. They want to have them all public as possible.
What are the sizes of the road? Do you know, or is that a better question for the developer?
They're, yeah, I'll let
Sizes
him.
of the roads.
I'll let him speak. With their standard 50 foot, they are asking for relief, and I'll let Ben ask that to you. But again, tonight it's not as important as it is when we bring the plan back for approval with the development agreement. But I'll let him explain that tonight. Now they're asking for a variation on sidewalk on because of who they're catering
It
to.
looked like they were just on one side.
On one side. Well, I'll let him come up and give you his spiel on that of why they're asking for that, and so I don't overspeak or underspeak to that for him. But the roads, the widths will be standard 50 foot or bigger, because some of them, you have this main road that goes through the project here that bends around. It's going to be quite large, and then heads back over to Main Street. It'll have a sidewalk, a setback meandering path on one side. It'll be landscaped on both sides. You can see the design in your book. The streets are kind of called out. Now, that's one of the main roads, and again, this particular road here that'll then tie in northward to Washington Parkway will be one of the major roads also. They'll be a little bit bigger than the standard 50-foot residential. And there will be trail systems, and again, this area, if you've been out there, you would know that you can't build in this particular. This is going to be
That's
left
a
in
really
its.
neat canyon.
It's a beautiful canyon. Unfortunately, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but people with ATVs have gone through there and kind of messed up what could have been even a better, gorgeous-looking area, but it's been kind of beat up now with this development. It'll hopefully be protected from that, and they'll be putting a trail all the way in that'll tie to that future park that the city has planned down in the bottom of the gorge here, which will be nice to have. But that is a beautiful little drop-off area, canyon-esque. Is that even a word? Goes down in there. Sounds good though, doesn't it?
Do you think this project will push the parkway along?
This will help get the parkway. At least we'll be getting quite a big portion of it, as you can see on that northern boundary. And I think it will help push the park. I think, to be honest with you, I think once we get rooftops going there, it's going to help Sitla sell more of the land to developers.
Well, not just that,
So-
but the parkway should be built by development. Now, we've had discussions of how to facilitate until the development gets there. So this development will have a big impact, very positive from the city standpoint, without us having to front a lot of that to help build that and bring it along.
Yeah, so they'll be building out half of that for that full distance, to
It'll
there.
go to Green Springs and dead end, right?
Well, our hope is from here it's not too far to get it to Green Springs, and then we have the Washington Vista project that's under construction right now. By the time hopefully we get to this point, and by the time that project gets to it, there won't be too much in between the two of them to connect through there. And who knows what will happen by then with, who will be showing up at Sitla's door wanting to to develop up in that north area too. So that's our hope. Once they see rooftops taking place, sometimes it sparks for even more to grow. Because that is a need. There's no doubt, and this will help get us there, at least get us to Main Street. That's a big plus.
It looks like if the project is approved, the phasing on some of that, especially on the north side, is 4 to 5 years plus.
It is. We're going to start in the
projections,
south.
so-
Yeah, they will be starting down here in the south, and then you see in your book the phasing will move its way upward.
Thank you. Do any other questions? Again, this is a public hearing. Maybe that have an interest in this project, like I guess, or a disinterest, I guess. You're welcome to come up.
Mayor, finding there's no comments, I'd make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Okay, I've got a motion to close the public hearing. Have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second.
Turek, aye.
Staley, aye.
Truman, aye.
Nice and aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll move on to item C, consideration to approve an ordinance adopting a zone change request Z-1404 to change present zone from OS and R16 to PCD.
Before we have a motion, can we talk to the developers?
Absolutely.
I have a few questions.
Excuse me, Ben Willits, Henry Walker Homes. Willits? Thank you.
Is this a golf cart community?
It's not going to be slated as such. We did have talks with the Parks Department, with Barry, about possibly doing a shared access. As far as the circulation line, oh, yeah, we could do that. Probably. Yeah, let's probably do that one there. Okay. This is not going to be billed as a golf cart or golf community, if you will. But having said that, after speaking with Parks and with Barry, we thought it would be a good opportunity to potentially have shared access across the existing bridge, which is right here. I'll just leave the pen there. The bridge actually sits right here. It goes across the big wash, Mill Creek Wash. And the thought was to have a shared access that would continue on up north to the Washington Parkway, and then eventually that would open it up to development across the way for those folks who would like to use that access and using a golf cart, that they could come and not have to get in their car, drive all the way down Main Street, cross down Buena Vista, up and around, that they could use that as a shared access and go over onto Fairway Drive and be able to then access the clubhouse directly from there. So that is part of our negotiations, if you will, or speaking with the Parks and Recs folks, and Barry was very supportive of that. So again, it's not going to be billed something similar to Sun River as far as that's the big push, but it will be more of an amenity item.
Is there so the access would be on hole number 6 and then tie into the bridge there?
Correct.
Are the roads sized adequate for that, or is there room for golf carts?
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about that with Lester, with Public Works, that that Fairway Drive is large enough that we could do some sort of a striped kind of pseudo bike.
No, in your proposed
Oh,
development.
Yeah, and same thing, similar situation there as far as the roadways all meet the existing current city standards, as far as we don't have any narrower, real neck down roadways that would prohibit that kind of activity from going on, as far as if there was however many dozens of golf carts coming in and out. Again, we're not viewing this as being a heavily, if that were to be the case, a very heavily traveled use as far as golf carts, because we're not directly on the golf course and are really billing it as such. So it would just be more of an amenity item. So, but yes, the existing the existing intent as far as the roadways go would be to be able to have that as an amenity that would be able to be shared on the roadway without any public safety issues. So, but we would not have designated striped areas as far as cart path. I mean, you'd have to do that for the whole community, really, in order to get that to really work. Because it's gonna be hard to say where somebody would live with a golf cart, whether it's at the top or the bottom. I mean, it could be wherever. But the roadways would be able to handle that from a public safety standpoint. So.
And what are the various sizes of roads, and why on a lot of those are there just a sidewalk on one side? What's the purpose behind that? I know some of the roads are a little bit smaller than what our normal city standard is.
Yeah, the only area that we had proposed having a smaller roadway was again up in the townhome area, and then potentially in this cul-de-sac, but we ended up single loading that instead of double loading that cul-de-sac, so that remedied the problem as far as the actual roadway width. All the rest of the roads throughout all meet the current city standards as far as roadway cross sections. The only exception is, again, as we see on the plan here, is that we are proposing to do a single load sidewalk, and the reason for that is, as we did our research and looked throughout the majority of these types of communities, that a double loaded sidewalk it wasn't applicable to this type of community. Most people aren't using the sidewalk to begin with. The biggest thing that we found from not only other communities that we had been to, but through all the market research for this clientele, is they wanted more trail systems. And it wasn't so much a public safety issue as most communities are when you have your typical single family, 3 to 4 kids in a household, kids going on their big wheels, all that kind of stuff. Even though my kids on their big wheels don't use the sidewalk anyway, so that's kind of a moot point. But that this type of a user does not use the sidewalk as much, and it gives your cross section of your neighborhood area and the streetscape feel is much softer to have a sidewalk just on one side. So from that standpoint, this map shows pretty well as far as the trail circulation goes, and you can see it pretty readily through here. That becomes more of our, and down through here again, as Drew talked about, that becomes more of our emphasis as far as the circulation goes, within the ability to get to any of those on at least a sidewalk. So again, we just found that demographic and the communities that we've seen and had done the research on, it was very, very rare that we saw them without just a single loaded sidewalk on them. Again, putting more of the emphasis on the trail system. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or no? Okay. Thank you.
Since the sidewalks were brought up, that's one of the issues that Public Works has, is not having the double-loaded sidewalks. We have 2 areas in the city where we don't have that now, Green Springs Drive and Fairway Drive. We constantly get phone calls of people wanting to know why there's not sidewalk on both sides of the road. A great example is if you want to walk to your next door neighbor on some of these roads, you'd have to walk out in the street instead of the sidewalk to go to your next door neighbor. So that's still an issue for Public Works, is that we believe that there should be sidewalk on both sides of the road.
And I assume these are issues we can fine tune when it comes to the actual approval process and whether we want dual sidewalks.
Yep. And you know, we've been having conversation with the developer on it, so it's something that I'm sure will work out.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, thank you. We want to move forward with the motion?
Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve an ordinance adopting zone change request Z-14-04 to change present zone from open space in R16 to PCD, with the zoning to become effective in conjunction with an acceptable development agreement and the final draft of a project plan book.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second.
Nice and aye.
Chairman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Turek, aye.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, that's approved. Item 8, report from assigned committees. Anything to report?
Unless you're going to talk about it, Mayor, I'll mention that we did kick off our downtown committee meeting. We didn't have the turnout that we had hoped, but we do have some really good citizens that are going to be involved in that. We did have some show up, and we're off to a start at least, which is important. Part of that committee will be to relook at what this area surrounding City Hall will look like in the future. One of the big pieces of that will be where our new police station will sit. So that's an important and exciting committee that started. I think we would like to enlist some dollars, either from the budget or a budget opening, to enlist some engineering and some help to have some professional design done with that. But we do have some ideas on how we want to proceed to go through that, and to bring in some of the department heads and the manager to get their input as the citizens kind of help the mayor and I design that.
Anybody else? What a lively bunch. Okay, if not, we'll move on to the city manager report.
Mayor, do you want to report on recon?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, probably the big thing is the mayor and I attended 2 days of the economic development shopping center show that we've been involved in for a number of years in Las Vegas this last week. We partnered up with EDC Utah for the first time, and I think that was a good move for us. Not only just their exposure, but also the contacts. We made a number of contacts. We've since we've come back actually had one particularly fairly large organization contact us and want to spend more time visiting with us, and I can share that with the council. And so we're quite hopeful that maybe some of the kind of adjusted how we've done that this year, and we're kind of excited about this. We think it'll be a little bit more successful for us. But it's always funny to have the mayor with us, because the mayor can find a relative in whomever we meet. He not only can find a relative, he can extract 3 names. You know, he does. So it's you got a good representative there, I think. So we had a good time on that. And we're doing some follow-ups now.
And we saved on food because there was Jimmy John's and some other places, and so we just went by all the booths and got free food. So the food budget was nothing.
We can't eat another Jimmy John's for about 2 years, but yeah, free's good. Anyway, just I don't have a whole lot to update on that hasn't already been updated, but we've got, of course, the trail project continues to move on. We're anticipating that that'll be completed right around the latter part of July on the trail project. They're making great progress with that, and at this point, all the agencies have allowed them to continue to work and move forward because they've stayed out of that habitat area. And so Mike's working with the Slurry Seal group just on those couple of small issues. Those, of course, their project is done other than resolving a couple of those issues. Mike and I visited today a little bit. You may have noticed that there is some work down there on 3090 on the St. George side. They've closed that road off. They're doing some widening there. And so we're going to have some discussion. Mike's going to have some discussion with St. George with regards to maybe that also might be one that with their participation like they're doing right now, we may be able to move forward a little bit too. There's also one of our big residential developers that have picked up one of those pieces that front that road also, that development, and so they're going to be moving on that fairly quickly. So again, a couple of good pieces of the puzzle coming into play on 3090. 3650 is still our priority because it's an easier and cheaper fix for us, but 3090 may not be too far behind, and if we can improve that 3090 and 3650, then that Merrill Road even still becomes a little less of a priority at the moment, and I think that's still good. I mean, we don't have to rush to put a big road in front of a school and other things, especially when the St. George is expanding 3,000, they're directing that traffic right down 3090 and 3650. And so it will allow us to kind of shift those funds into areas that I think will get the same impact without worrying about it. But that's one of the items that the council can kind of have a discussion with regard to that. Merrill is not off our list because it is a capital facilities item. So we're going to continue to move forward with that. But at this point, we're kind of hopeful with all that's going on. We've scheduled on the 11th to have, Mike, what is the group that'll be coming? Is it UDOT or is it, Horrocks, okay. So we're going to have Horrocks here on the 11th. We have two things scheduled on your work session for the, is it the 11th? Did I get that right? 10th. On the 10th, we're going to have Horrocks here to talk about the discussions that we've had already on preliminary, very preliminary design work on interchanges. We call milepost 11 discussion. Very preliminary, but needed work for us. And so we want the council's kind of guidance on that issue. And then also Suntran will be here. Fred Davies will be here to talk to the council with regards to routing and budgets and some other things that he's put together. And so we'll have some discussion. I know that's been one that we wanted to bring back to the council for some continued discussion. I don't know if you've seen the cemetery lately, or at least the expanded. I hope you've seen the cemetery. The cemetery actually looks beautiful. The parks have done a beautiful job. I thought Memorial Day, the cemetery was absolutely beautiful with what the parks have done. But I don't know if you've seen the new cemetery expansion, but they've got the posts actually, the rock posts that are already going in, and the crew, and I'm not sure who the crew is, but they're doing really a fantastic job, and our parks crew is very pleased with this crew that's working on the cemetery.
You know, on that note, Manager, I remember looking at the plat of that, and I know we had this discussion, but my wife asked me, and so I want to make sure I give her a good answer. She said just to make sure we have plenty of trees in that expansion.
Yeah.
That was, and she normally doesn't get involved in any of these discussions,
well,
but that was her input on Memorial Day as we were close to that cemetery. So.
Well, and the good news, she has a great advocate with Denise. Denise always, and Denise, we've had great eyes on this cemetery. You know, we have Denise and Tara that watch it, and of course they handle those cemetery sales and those customers that come in and are purchasing the plots. And so they get a lot of input with respect to that. We've got some good wide areas for trees. That's part of it. Getting good wide areas, getting the irrigation laid properly.
And those will go in as we do this?
Yeah, some. Well, we won't do them all, of course, right at the beginning because we get things kind of settled. And then even the new section that we have there below the parking lot, there will be the ability to put some additional stuff in there too, and that was kind of the plans. But the column work, the rock work, will have wrought iron fencing between the column posts. They'll be doing some similar treatment around the corner of 300 and Parkview.
To tie it all.
So it ties it all in. Mm-hmm. And then they will stagger the fencing on the north side. So they have, and you've seen this design where they stagger, but they'll leave those staggers open for errant soccer balls. So as soccer balls might come over, the kids can go in and pick up the soccer balls and not have to either climb the fence or go all the way around. And then, of course, those posts are made so that we can expand as we need to. But a lot of plots there. We think that that'll cover us for a number of years, even though we miscalled the other one. We think it'll cover us for a few years.
We've heard that before, haven't we?
So yes, plenty of trees.
Yeah, plenty of trees.
Question,
And I should say, let me say it this way, Councilman, because this is probably a better way to say it. Plenty of room for trees. I don't know how many we've really got in the budget right now to fill it up, but we've got plenty of room for trees. So, but I'll follow up on that too. And let's see. We're getting close on the generation facility. Again, we're going to have the council out. Councilman Turek actually went out a couple weeks ago and actually suggested when the time comes that we open that up, before we officially open it, we maybe open it up for the public. It's a pretty impressive facility. So, of course, we wanted to get the council out there one day. We'll get the staff out there one day to look at that facility. They're wiring it right now, and it's pretty complicated wiring connected with Hurricane and all that. But we'll get the council out. We should be done by about the mid part of June. And then, just so you know, on transition, it'll be about another 30 to 60 days as we move supplies, and not all the supplies will leave the old yard, but a good portion of the supplies will leave the old yard, go to the new generation facility, and that will be in preparation for the Parks Department to leave here and to go up to the old yard, which to them will be like Shangri-La. I mean, they are just really excited This facility, of course, back here, we'll do nothing with at the moment, more than likely, depending on the fact that if the police department ends here, we'll probably have to have the parking, but for now, we'll probably use it for emergency services storage, sandbags, water, generators, those type of things right now. But we won't be using this facility anymore as a maintenance facility for parks, and I know a lot of the neighbors will be very
Yeah, I was going to say, I can think of a couple of ladies that, that will.
Well, we've appreciated everybody's patience over these many years. As a matter of fact, it was funny. We got a call just a couple weeks ago from one of them that said, "Well, it looks like a maintenance yard across the street." And our comment, well, it is a maintenance yard across the street, and it's been that way for 20 years. But it was the point that they're ready for it to go as well. Anyway, I think, Mayor, that's probably the big updates I have.
I did want to mention, I've been going to that Recon conference for almost 6 years now, and this time that we partner with EDCU, we two that I had talked to, the one that I found out I do have a relative who's a director of one of the big developers here, and they're ready to move on something in that 13, and those two developers are actually getting with Sitla and laying out ideas and thoughts. And so it was just usually it's like I'm the mayor of Washington City, and they go, "You who?" Now they're going, "Well, wow, you're growing, and you've got this great piece of property out here," and so I felt really good about our stay that we did. All right, if not anything else, we need to move to a closed session to discuss pending or potential litigation and discussion regarding deployment of security personnel, devices, or systems. So I need a motion to adjourn to move to the closed session, if I could. Or just move into it. So we don't need to adjourn? Well, hallelujah. Let's. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Huh?